And in East Asia, the truth is they didn't have a strategy for China because they're not very intelligent people. They couldn't look ahead, and they didn't see that China was going to rise as a major power. So if you go back to the late 1990s, China barely figures in any of the discussions. It's not like they were plotting what to do. China was a place that was going to assemble our toys and automotive components and electronics gears and phones and things like that. It wasn't a matter of geopolitical concern at the time. So this unipolar project had its European dimension in NATO enlargement. And this, of course, ran contrary to the fundamental alternative vision of European security, which was ostensibly the one that had ended the Cold War. Because remember that the end of the Cold War was German reunification in 1990, based on the 4+2 framework. And the goal of that settlement was indivisible security in Europe, that there would not be blocs. In fact, it was quite explicit of the US and Germany that NATO would not play any kind of strategic bloc role going forward. And the US said to Gorbachev, we will not take advantage of your unilateral ending of the Warsaw Pact military alliance or your economic and financial weakness as of the early 1990s. We will have indivisible security. And several treaties and agreements under the framework of the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe defined that kind of indivisible security. NATO was the opposite of that. NATO is bloc politics. The OSCE was the end of bloc politics. I was there in the Soviet Union in 1990 and in Russia from the end of 1991 onward, and I heard an earful from Gorbachev, from Yeltsin, and so forth about a common European home, indivisible security, the end of blocs, peace and cooperation. I believe it. I believed it then. I think that that's the answer to European security. The Europeans are not having it, by the way. This is so strange to my mind. They were offered peace, and they have basically rejected it. First, under the push of the United States, they said, yes, we prefer U.S. hegemony to a common European home. They made that choice. They had qualms and misgivings. Actually, the showdown came at the Bucharest NATO summit in 2008, when the U.S. said, now's the moment. We're going to push NATO to Ukraine and Georgia. Chancellor Merkel, President Hollande said, not a great idea. George Bush put his foot down and said, we're going to do it. And they said, okay, we're going to do it. That's when the U.S. hegemon dominated, and the idea of any kind of indivisible security disappeared entirely. So when you ask, what is the security for Europe now? Europe needs a security arrangement not based on blocs, but Europe can't get its head around that. And by the way, Europe has made this mistake so many times. There's a kind of bloody-mindedness in Europe. I'm just rereading the history of Poland refusing to form a common security agreement with the Soviet Union in 1939, even as Nazi Germany was about to destroy Poland. But Poland hated the Russians so much that it wouldn't even look to the Soviet Union for protection in 1939. If you look back at that, it's completely suicidal. And Europe is just a difficult place. Everybody hates each other. And so they can't imagine collective security. They can't imagine indivisible security. Now, what do I recommend for this? I recommend that the Europeans have direct diplomacy with Russia. I recommend, by the way, that you don't put European security literally in the hands of a few Baltic state politicians. This is to put Europe's politics into the hands of the most rabidly Russophobic people on the whole continent. But if Europe maintains its Russophobia, there is no security for Europe. And if Europe doesn't engage in diplomacy, there's no peace for Europe, whatever the United States does. So when you ask me what's the European security arrangement, it would be that Europeans understand Russia's not going anywhere. Russia is a part of Europe, and it has been geographically, it is a part of Europe, to the Urals at least, and militarily, culturally, diplomatically, geopolitically, financially, economically, it is. And if the Europeans think the United States is going to somehow make that not happen, well, that was the idea of the Cold War, but that's past. So if Europe is looking to the United States to replay the Cold War, forget it. The U.S. is tired. It's got huge budget deficits. Russia is not viewed as some, even it was wrongly viewed then, but it's not viewed as some global communist threat. You know, the United States is just not interested in the European hatreds. And so they should talk to the Russians and figure out what their indivisible security really is about.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌帮助了睡眠品质。原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有超级食物羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good。请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。